Today's episode is brought to you by Craftsy. Whether you're new to making or looking to advance skills in a favorite hobby, Craftsy is the place to learn. With over 1,500 classes, there's something for everyone, from knitting and sewing to baking and cooking, gardening, embroidery, quilting, and more. Visit craftsyoffers.com today and get a full year of Craftsy premium membership for just $3. That's 97% off the regular price. Start turning ideas into projects you can be proud of. Thank you so much, Craftsy. And now, here's the show. Welcome to episode 223 of the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals where you can strengthen your creative business, stay up to date on industry news, and build connections within our supportive trade association. Check it out at craftindustryaLliance.org. Today on the show, we are talking about quilting and teaching quilting with my guest, Sandra Chandler. Sandra Lee Chandler embarked on her teaching career 38 years ago at Santa Ana Community College. She now teaches at many national shows, including Quilt Canada, Stitches West, QuiltCon, Festival of Quilts, and Squam, as well as teaching a weekly virtual quilting class through Saddleback Community College. Sandra's work has been published in numerous magazines, and she has made several television appearances as well that have helped to launch her career to new heights. Sandra's core materials for quilting are thread and fabric. However, she often employs recycled denim, yarns, dyed fabrics, and stamps to transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Sandra is especially known for her repurposed denim quilts and wearable art quilted garments. Sandra Chandler, welcome.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it was so great to get a little chance to hang out with you at H&H Americas not too long ago. That was awesome. And you lent us a gorgeous denim quilt to hang in our booth where we had a big empty spot. And we so appreciate it. You're like, I'll just run out to my car and grab you a quilt. And it was like the best thing ever. So I'm so grateful to you. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you. You know, it was one of those when I was packing. You know how you go over that last packing list and you're like, okay, I got everything for the class. I got everything. And, you know, literally for some reason, I was like, wait a minute, you don't have a denim quilt with you. Even though I wasn't teaching any denim quilt classes or workshops, I was like, nope, you're known for denim. You need to put a denim quilt in there. So clearly the universe knew that you were going to need it.
Exactly. And it was so perfect. It actually matched our colors and everything. So yeah, that was awesome. So I know you are a California girl. You were born in Los Angeles and then raised in Orange County. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what your household was like growing up. Were you creative? Were your parents creative?
So what's really interesting is, I hear all these people and they talk about I grew up in a family of creative people and the color was all around me. And I'm kind of like, yeah, that wasn't my story. So I grew up in a household with a mother and a father, and I have a sister who's much younger than I am. And my grandmother, who was my mother's mother, was very, very close to us. And she's like a second mother. She actually sewed and created. But by the time I was old enough to know and see, she kind of had stopped creating. I remember her occasionally sewing some things, but I wasn't really, I was a kid and I was pretty young and didn't really notice, a whole bunch. I knew she had a sewing machine. I saw the needles. I remember the pinking shears, but that's about it. And then my mother and father were corporate people. My mother was a teacher. My father works in the corporate world, and they aren't creative. Neither one of them was. And so I feel like it skipped that generation, the creativity. And I did not know I was creative until I went to 7th grade home economics.
Ah, that's great. Yeah. I love home economics. So what happened when you got to home economics?
Literally the skies parted. Like, literally it was like, oh, and the angels were like, we've been waiting for you. I had a home economics teacher, like everybody has a home economics teacher, that was known for being very stern, at times she yelled. She was very exact. But for me, growing up in a household that was pretty conservative, and my parents were pretty, we were just conservative. I grew up going to Catholic schools all the way up to middle school. So I was used to the regiment. I was used to like sternness. I was used to this is right and this is wrong. And I believe what happened was because I had no background, many of the students that I went to school with in middle school, their mothers were Susie homemakers, and that was not my mother. My mother does not like cooking, so she never baked. She cooked dinner for us, but that was because she had to. And so when I got to home economics, I didn't come with a bag of like tricks or like my mother taught me this or my taught me this. And I think what attracted her to me was that I was an empty slate. Like I was like, you tell me to stitch 4 stitches, I'm going to stitch 4 stitches. You tell me, whatever it was you tell me to do, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to take it as face value. And so for home economics, for me, it was my safe space. It was my haven. At the time, I grew up in Orange County, and I was one of, I think there was 4 other African Americans at my high school. And in my middle school, there was only 1 other African American.
Oh, wow.
And so I was very isolated. And sewing has always been my safe haven. It was where I could be me. I could just almost like exhale. And so during my course of learning how to sew, because again, I knew nothing, she actually sat me at the Elna. So they had the Singer machines, but for some reason, she took me and said, you get to sit at the Elna. And I'm like, okay, even though I didn't know what Elna versus Singer versus anything. But she saw something in me, and this is how teachers are so important in our lives of our young people. She spoke into me before I even knew what I needed to have spoken into. She taught me about nutrition. My mother was, the modern era where all of our vegetables were from a can. She was that woman. She's like, I'm not going to cook for, half the day for dinner. And so I remember going home and saying, Mom, do you know vegetables can actually be sweet? Which is so funny because my mother's grandmother, my great grandmother, was a farmer, and my mother went to the farm every summer. So she knew what fresh vegetables looked like. I just didn't know what fresh vegetables looked like. So in home economics, like I said, I instantly fell in love with fabric. I instantly fell in love with the creativity that you could have. I was horrible. My first dress, the zipper was broke by the time I got the zipper in the dress. I was everything you could do wrong, I did wrong. But I still loved it. Like I was just like, I'm in love. At the same time, my mother's best friend was at a charity organization, and she won free classes to learn how to quilt. Oh. So literally in the same exact month, I learned how to sew clothing, and I learned how to quilt.
So your mom's friend gave you the classes, or she took you with her?
No, she gave them to me.
She just gave them to you. She didn't really want them.
Heard that I was like,
oh, I see, right,
that I was enjoying sewing, and so she gave them to me. And what's so interesting about that is I remember sitting in, I was again so blessed and fortunate. Our quilt shop in my local town, the lady, Fraser's Fabric, never will forget it. I didn't know this, but she had a love for fabric because you went in and the fabrics were amazingly beautiful, especially in the 70s.
I was going to say, because quilting at that time was really different, just the way that it was done than it is now.
Exactly. But for this lady, I remember the brilliance of the colors of even the fabrics that she used. So what I found out was her husband was a doctor. So it wasn't like she had to worry about every penny.
Right.
So she was able to buy fabrics that she loved and not really have to worry about are they going to, be profitable and that. So she had fabrics all over. I sat at this little round table with all these ladies, these little old gray haired ladies, and here little African-American girls sitting there, and they're talking about templates and plastic templates and sandpaper and, putting all the hard stuff that you used to have to do. And I just remember sitting there thinking I had died and gone to heaven. So quickly after that, I went through the classes. And the next year I went to high school and I took sewing classes every semester after that.
It's amazing that your high school offered sewing classes. Because again, even with home economics, I feel like those things are gone now.
Yeah, I was just blessed.
Yeah.
Like I said, I took every class and I lived in my own world. I literally lived in my own world. So let's go forward. I graduated from high school. I go to college. I'm like, the only thing I know I really know well is sewing. So I decided to major in home economics, textiles, and marketing.
And you went to college in Arizona.
Yes. So went to Arizona State. So I know everything from growing the plant to manufacturing the fabric, growing the plant and weaving and all that, spinning, weaving. And then I also know everything from dyeing the yarns to man-made, what does that look like, to bringing it to market, to marketing the product. After college, I was a buyer for Bullock's department stores. And
where's Bullock's department stores?
Bullock's Macy's purchased Bullock's.
Okay.
It used to be Bullock's, and we had Bullock's Wilshire, and we had Robinson's May. All of those have been eaten up and bought up by the big people. Okay,
so you were a buyer. Were you buying for their fabric department or a different?
Buying for the clothing.
Okay.
Young Attitude. We used to call it Junior's Young Attitude.
Young Attitude. Oh my God, that's the best. Right. So you were buying for Young Attitude. And so, because you had this sort of textiles, fashion background, you were qualified to do that.
Right. And so, at the same time, I was realizing the people that are higher up are the ones that make the money, and they were Jewish men. And I'm like, well, I'm Black and I'm not a man. So there's probably a glass ceiling. And I was working really, really hard hours and long hours, and stability wasn't there and the money wasn't there. And so I decided to pivot and go out of retail. But at the same time, my home economics teacher jumped back in my life right after college and said, you will teach a class. And I know the guy that runs all the classes in the local town. And you'll go talk to John and tell John I sent you, and you will start teaching. I started teaching quilting classes the same year I graduated from college.
So this is your home economics teacher from 7th grade?
Yes.
And she kept in touch with you?
Yes.
Wow. So were you guys just like writing, it wasn't email, like were you just calling or writing letters or something in between?
So, you know what, I can't remember how she kept in, like she was one of these people that always would just reach out to me.
Yeah.
Be like, where'd you come from?
Right. And so she was like, oh, you got this degree, you should teach. And did she point you to, was John at like a community college or what? Was that, or a quilt shop?
He was over the Parks and Recreation.
Oh, right. Okay. All right. So you started teaching, and were you teaching quilting?
Yes.
Okay. So you were teaching quilting right out of college.
Yes, 1984.
In 84, which for folks who aren't sort of up on kind of the more modern era of quilting, that was early days. Yeah. Wow. That's so cool, Sandra. Okay. So, so you were teaching quilting there and then working as a buyer, but sort of not so sure that was a good long-term career path for you. Did you eventually quit that full-time job and dive fully into teaching?
No. So then I always had a day job. I ended up having 4 children. I ended up always kind of working part-time within, teaching sporadically. And then one year I wasn't working. My kids were all at home, and my girlfriend says, hey, we can teach at the junior college. And I was like, what? She goes, yeah, there's this program. And she goes, and we get really good money per hour. And I said, really? And she goes, yeah. And so I started teaching 24 years ago for the junior colleges in Southern California. Okay. And it's called the Emeritus program. And it's a California funded program to help seniors stay active. So there's no grades. They come to class. We get paid because of attendance, and you have to teach in the major in which you have a degree in. And it's very hard to find home economics teachers, and so they're always really happy to see me. They're like, "Yes, you have a home economics degree."
And when you say seniors stay active, do you mean seniors in college or seniors like older people?
Seniors, older people.
Okay. But so the teachers are meant to be seniors who are older people?
No, the participants.
The participants. Okay.
But the way it's written, you just have to be 18 or over. So I guess because of legal issues, they couldn't say like a senior is this or whatever. The grant is the money is supposed to be for seniors, people that are, retired and older. But as long as you're 18 years or over, you can attend.
You can qualify. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So you started teaching in that program. The money was better. Yes. And you had 4 kids. So that worked for your lifestyle.
Right. And so I started teaching. And then about 15 years ago, I think that's when I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to take this on the road. And I wasn't working at the time. And my children, two of them had already graduated from college. And I'm like, I'm just going to see what this is like. And I was still teaching through the colleges, but I just started going on the internet. And that's when I discovered the Modern Quilt Guild. And I was like, modern? Wait, that's not modern. That's old. That's just old. What they consider modern is just old. But anyway, and I just started like posting things like that I made. And then I remember Alexander Henry reached out to me and commissioned me to do some dresses for them for their booth for Houston at Market. And then companies started reaching out to me through my Instagram feed.
Do you remember the very first sort of online introduction to the quilting world? I know the Modern Quilt Guild was part of it, but do you remember, was there a specific, blog or image or tutorial or something that kind of stands out to you as like, oh, that was the first thing I saw online that really like struck me?
So I didn't have one thing that struck me. I think it was how quilters were coming out of the closet period. And I don't categorize myself as a modern quilter. I would consider myself a contemporary quilter, meaning that I have a lot of elements. I still am traditional. Like when you're born and raised and taught something, it's hard to like break out of that. I still have a lot of traditional elements that I put into my creations. And I do remember one of the biggest pivots for me was a gal, what was it called? Sew Mama Sew, I think it is.
Yeah. She
did a like people to watch.
Okay.
He highlighted me. And I was looking at, I had like 500 followers or, 200 followers, something like that, really low. And all of a sudden my feed just like blew up. And I was like, what is going on? Like, what is going on? And when she spoke, that was the pivotal moment in my career where it was like, I'm here.
Wow.
I'm doing what I always did. For me, it was like I wake up in the morning and I would create like it was a job. I'd wake up in the morning, figure out what my inspiration is. What am I going to do? I always tried to organize my thoughts for that year. What do I want to say? What materials do I want to work on? And then I would just do it. And at that point was kind of like, aha.
And so what kind of like private work? I mean, I know you were teaching, obviously you were raising children, which is a very full-time job, but what kind of private work were you making, just as your own creative expression in those years?
So that's when I started doing the denim. Like I literally, again, for me, it was like, you know what, Sandra, all these years, for 30 some years, you've been buying patterns and trying to match the fabric. And at that moment, I was like, no, I need to use the resources which I have at my house. What are my resources? And I looked down, I had these Tupperware bins of denim. And I said, you're always giving this denim away. What can you do with this denim? How can you create with this denim the way it's never been created before? And so I do a lot of research and I looked at, the past, what people had done with denim. And I said, you know what? I want to change how we look at it. Repurposed, instead of looking and saying, oh, that's a pair of jeans and she made it into a purse. I want you to see the purse or see the quilt or see the garment and then go,
right.
That was repurposed denim. So I wanted to flip the switch. So what I did was I said, I've got to look at this denim as if it was a fabric line. And that's what I do.
Yeah, that's a fascinating way to look at it. And if you look at your denim quilts, especially when they're laid on a bed, that definitely comes through. And so, so you were, you had denim was that from like discarded jeans from that your kids had grown out of, or what were these denim Tupperware bins that you were giving away? Where did that denim come from?
My kids. It was my family's. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I started out deconstructing everything. I don't deconstruct everything anymore. I don't do anything with any stretch in it. I don't use any denim with stretch. I don't deconstruct children's jeans. It takes just as long to deconstruct a pair of children's jeans as it does a fat.
Because you're really deconstructing, which is why you're getting this effect. So you're saying that, a lot of upcycled denim projects, the maker intentionally kind of leaves the rivets and the pockets and some of the stitching and things like that in place so that when you see it, you're like, oh, that's so cool. It's like somebody's jeans that they've made into XYZ. But you're really taking everything apart.
Right. So, so my first couple quilts, there was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. People talk about needles. I've used every single needle. People talk about thimbles. I've gone through every single type of thimble. Thread weight, every type of thread, threads and or pearl cotton. Like I literally fell in every hole. And sometimes I climbed out and sometimes I didn't. And so I would consider myself a authority on handling denim.
I want to take a minute now to talk about our sponsor, Craftsy. And here is a message from Craftsy. At Craftsy, we know making. Whether you're new to the handmade life or looking to advance your skills, we have classes for all maker levels and interests, from knitting and sewing to quilting and embroidery, cooking, baking, paper crafts, and more. Craftsy's instructors guide and encourage you, empowering you to turn ideas into realities. And they have an exclusive offer for Craft Industry Alliance podcast listeners. Right now, you can get a whole year of their premium membership for only $3. Visit craftsyoffers.com to sign up, and the discount will be automatically applied at checkout. For only $3, you'll get a full year of access to over 1,500 premium full-length classes. It can be challenging to know where to go to learn new things, especially when you're an absolute beginner. Craftsy's instructors help build strong foundations as they teach, setting you up for success and helping you fix mistakes as you go. Their enthusiasm and strong teaching style make learning accessible to all. If you're an experienced maker and looking for new challenges and fresh projects, Craftsy is for you too. From perfecting your fondant skills to tackling complex stitches, from eye-catching garden design to next steps in sourdough, Craftsy has advanced classes in all crafts from instructors who are experts in their field. With over 1,500 classes, including downloadable patterns and recipes, Craftsy has a class and a craft for everyone. Visit craftsyoffers.com today and get a year of Craftsy premium membership for just $3. That's 97% off the regular price. Start turning ideas into projects you can be proud of. Get this exclusive offer at craftsyoffers.com. And there were maybe a few other people doing things with denim, but there wasn't really like, I mean, this became kind of your niche, I would say, during that time. And you were also, if I remember correctly, like you were also altering actual jeans. Is that right?
Right. So yes. So I love doing modification, I guess you would call it.
And like embellishment or something. Yeah.
Embellishment. Yeah. And so I started looking at my jeans and going like, okay, so here's a great pair of jeans. What do I want to do with them? How do I want them to look or feel? I've always been a hand stitcher. Hand stitching is my thing. It's my zen. You know, people talk about their zen. The whole idea of the needle holding the metal, the piercing, you know how they talk about with the shot, it's just 1 second, it's going to hurt for a second. The needle going through the arm. Same thing with thread. The needle piercing into the fabric, going between the threads. It's that same kind of tactile feel. The rhythm of pulling the threads through all 3 layers or all 2 layers if you're doing a mending, all of that for me is very therapeutic. And so I just started combining my loves of what I love to do and what really resonated with me, and communicating that to others. And like, hey, you guys, like, do you feel this? Is this, you know, and people started responding back in a positive way, like, yeah, you're right. I never thought of it that way.
So you mentioned that you had Instagram. Did you have a blog first before Instagram?
No. I am not a blogger.
Not a blogger. Okay. Right. So you were on Instagram posting some of these things. And I have to tell you that Sew Mama Sew was started by Kristen Link, and she and I co-founded Craft Industry Alliance together. So we go way back. But she had a very popular contributor blog, and it had like over 1 million page views a month or something. And so no wonder, when she would highlight your work, you would get a ton of traffic. So that must have been really exciting.
It was. And it's so funny because I didn't think of the internet. Like I was kind of naive, and to think, I was like, wait a minute, people really are watching me. It's still to this day, I have to tell you, it still amazes me. Like I was at the International Quilt Festival in Long Beach, and it cracks me up when people are like, hi, I follow you. And I'm like,
where?
What? Like, it's just, it's so interesting because I'm like, oh. And I almost don't know how, at first I didn't know how to respond back to that. It's like, well, what do you say? And so, now I usually say like, oh, great, thank you. Now, what was your name? And, who are you? And da. But yeah, the internet, I didn't realize how big the internet is.
Yeah. As
far as how deep and people that really take the time. I am not a social media person. I really am not. I don't have the time. I'm trying to finish projects I'm trying to get things done.
Yeah, you're more focused on the studio work and I think that's something a lot of people can relate to, sort of less focused on constantly updating and sharing every little stage with your audience.
Right. And I think, and there's a part of me, I'm kind of really private.
Yeah.
And so, I'm not, I want to share with you my enthusiasm for, the art, but there's a private part of me that, I'm not going to show you about my kids. First of all, my kids are all adults, and, I feel like they need to tell their own story.
Right.
It's not my story to tell. So, maybe on Mother's Day, I'll post about my kids or my boys. People have seen my boys because they're my models for my, bomber jackets.
Yeah.
Because I threaten them. I'm like, listen, I fed y'all. You can put this jacket on. But luckily they like the jackets, and they really like my clothes. They're like, Mom, you're the bomb.
Aw.
Okay. So I know I hit it. I'm doing the right thing when they get excited because they're in their late 20s and mid 20s, and so I'm always trying to. That's an area that I really haven't worked in is men's fashion.
Yeah.
But now men's fashion is so fascinating because they've really broke down those barriers.
Yeah.
What colors and what combinations. And I think when I create, what I'm always trying to do is do the unexpected. My whole idea is, and when I teach, and I'm always trying to help others to go like, okay, this is what you would expect to do with this piece of fabric or this quilt. Let's pivot.
Yeah.
And do a little of the unexpected.
I love that. Yeah. And it kind of like turns everything on its head and makes everything so much more interesting. Sometimes more challenging. Sometimes I'm sure that leads to some failures, but it also leads to like remarkable new ideas that you never, would have landed on otherwise. So you talked about how Alexander Henry, which is, for folks who aren't familiar, they're a fabric brand, reached out to you, and you made some samples, it sounds like, for their Quilt Market booth, which is, the big trade show. And they just found you on Instagram. Is that right? And I know you've got other kind of partnerships with fabric companies or, thread companies or other notions and things like that. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about how some of the ones that have been the most successful for you have come about, because I think there's a lot of folks who are like, I would love to collaborate with some of these brands, but I just don't even know how to make it happen.
Right. So for me, and this is, everybody has a different walk and everybody, has their own lane. I really believe we all have our own lane. And so the lane for me, at first I used to reach out and I'd apply to the different, shows, and I'd apply to different companies. And, you spend all this time and then you get the thank you, but not today. And it would bring me down. I would, because my art is so near and dear to me. It's really challenging me for even to put my art out there because it's so near to and dear to me. And so what I have found is, for me, I don't really apply for organizations or for companies very much. Most of the time, what I do is I wait for the company to approach me or the organization to approach me, because then I have a better success rate of them understanding who I am as an artist, and they want what I'm doing. I say that to say, but I have a couple times, like Orifel, they have their artisan of the year. And I love the community. I love the creative community, because I'm always getting these emails or text messages or instant messages or direct messages or whatever you want to call them. And they're like, Sandra, you should apply to this. Sandra, what about this? And I really am one of those people that literally works in my own like workshop, and I really don't know about half the stuff that goes on. And so they're my little like helpers that tell me what to do. And one person reached out and said, hey, Orifel, you should apply. And I did apply. And I was one of their artisans. I believe it was 3 years ago. And it was really fun to work with the company. So that's how I got attached to the Orifel. The Hoffman Fabrics was the first company that ever reached out to me and said, hey, we'd love to sponsor some fabric for you to create with. And the relationship started at Quilt Market. I was talking to Aaron, who works for Hoffman, and I actually approached him because of his tattoos. Nothing to do with Quilt.
Ah, that's awesome.
He has some arm tattoos, and my sons were interested in getting some tattoos. Both of them were in college at the time. And they were college athletes. And I'm like, okay, they're going to get tattoos. I need to understand I need to know about these tattoos and good ones. And so I actually started a conversation with him about his tattoos.
That's so funny.
And so that goes to show building relationships. What I would tell anybody is building relationships with people that you have things in common with, or that you kind of see eye to eye, is, I think, the best way in order to develop relationships and, have collaborations. That's how I go about everything. It's like, hey, who are you? Here's what I do. Oh, do we have some common interests? And if if our lanes are going down the same path, then, I'm always the first to say, let's collaborate. Because I always feel like 4 eyes are better than 2.
Absolutely. And also, you were there in person. I think that makes a difference as well. Like, you went to Quilt Market in person, and so you happened to stumble upon Aaron from Hoffman Fabrics, noticed that he had these tattoos, and strike up a conversation, which, it's pretty hard to do that via, Zoom or email or something. Yes.
And so that first Quilt Market I went with a brag book also. So because I had a professional career prior to diving into quilting, I had some marketing skills. Like, I already knew, okay, how you're going to market yourself. What do you want to look like? How,
Yeah.
When I went to Quilt Market, I already had in mind, I wore an outfit that I had made every day. I had a little brag book that was just like, I made it Costco. I had like a coupon for Costco, and it was just pictures. And I just kind of threw it together real quickly of some stuff that I had made in kind of different categories. And I just was like, you know what, you're going to put yourself out there. You're going to, introduce yourself. You're going to say, hey, would you like to see my book? And I was told, most people are really busy at market. They're trying to write orders. And I was like, okay, then I won't feel bad. I never went up to one person that was like, no, I don't have time. In fact, I was always like, okay, you don't have to look through all the book. And they were like, no, wait.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. So I would tell somebody, I had a goal of, meeting people, connecting with some people. And I can tell you, every time I went to market as a independent creator, that I always ended up working or having some type of positive influence on my career from just going to market.
Right. And you got to get out there and go to the trade shows and talk to people. It's just so important.
Yes.
Like
your H&H, America's. I went to that one, and I was there, and there was one company, I think they're from like Germany, if I remember correctly. And they had the beautiful fabrics they were printed on.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
Amazing. And I was like, oh my God, those are beautiful.
They are beautiful. They might have been from the Netherlands, those folks. Yes. Yeah.
And the guys are like beautiful. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I would walk past, but they were sitting down at a table. So note to vendors, never sit at a table.
You
in your
gotta
booth.
be
Like
open and friendly. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, that is not come on in, let's talk to you. Like, but they said that's how they do it in their country. So I ended up talking to them. So I went past. So finally one day I was like, oh my gosh, I love your fabrics. Do you guys ever, do you guys have influencers? Do you ever, do any collaboration? Or like the one gentleman, he's like, no, I'm sorry, we really don't. But we continued to talk, me and a girlfriend. We were like, oh, okay. We just started talking off just whatever. And by the end of the conversation, 15 minutes later, the other gentleman, who must have been the lead guy, he goes, give her a couple panels.
Ah, nice.
So I ended up coming home with 3 of their amazing panels that I told him, I said, hey, I'm booked up for this year, but I guarantee you I will be posting, I will be making an outfit. So even when people say no, that doesn't mean no. Like that may just mean not this minute.
Right. Absolutely. I mean, it may, right, exactly. No often means not right now for various different reasons, but I love that you hung out there and stuck around. And when you were in our booth, a guy from, I want to say Diamond Needle came up and he was like, hey, and he started chatting with you and he's like, let me send you some needles.
Yeah, it actually did. And I have them and I haven't, again, I kind of chart out my year.
Yeah.
And this is what I would tell everybody. At first I didn't chart out my year and I always felt like I was running in a hamster wheel. Now I chart out my year by quarters. And so when I go to things, I tell people like, hey, whatever you're giving or whatever we're working with or whatever collaboration, I'll put you for next year. But this year has already been, booked. So yes, he sent me all these needles and now I have to do research to figure out
what to do with them all. I know. I mean, but it's cool. You get exposed to different materials and sometimes that leads to something new. So I think that lesson of kind of in-person connection is really important. And I wanted to talk a little bit about quilt clothes because you were at Long Beach, which is a consumer show that Quilts Inc. puts on. And I think it was on their Facebook page the other day. Yes. I noticed that, right? I think it was a pair of pants, honestly. Yes. Yellow quilted quilt blocks, that were pants and a lot of positive comments, mind you, that were there. Oh, these are so cool, etc. And then one person was like, I hate to see this. You're cutting up a perfectly good quilt and ruining it or something like this. And you were like, actually, no. So, quilt clothes, obviously quilt coats have kind of been a topic of conversation of late, and you've been doing them for a long, long time. So I wanted to ask you about your feelings about quilt clothes.
So what's really interesting, back in, it was, the magazine is called Quilt Folk.
Yeah.
When they came to Southern California, so that was 3 years ago, maybe. And what was interesting, when they came to California, they reached out to me, said, hey, we'd love to interview you. They came to my home in my studio. And that was the first time the editors had said they had ever seen. So it was more than 3 years ago. It's 4 years probably. Because it was way before COVID. They had ever seen anyone make clothing out of.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Yes, which is very interesting because Mary Fonz was the person that reached out to me and she wanted to buy one of my jackets. Which I feel like...
Right, because Mary Fonz at that time was the editor of Quilt Folk. And so she was she there at your studio?
Yes.
Okay, so she was at your studio and she saw your quilt coats and she reached out then or later and said, could I buy one?
She had my blazer on and was like, I want to buy this. And I was like, no, it's my sample. I'm going to teach it.
And was that one you had made from one of your own quilts that later you were like, I'm going to cut this up? Or was that an antique or old quilt?
It was an older quilt. It was hand quilted. So what happened was, again, I'm always thinking about resources and I'm always thinking about education. And in my real world, when I was a professional, I never told people I was a quilter. And one of the reasons why is because I feel like quilters have this, like people think of quilters as my granny who sits in the corner and makes these quilts for my bed that some of the family members like and some of them don't because she really doesn't ask us what we want. And I was like, that's not me. Even when I made clothes, and many people that know me personally are like, oh, I bet you made that. My whole goal was to make clothing that didn't look like I made it. So I would always study fashion. and always try to reproduce like most people do that. So with intention, or like I want to beat the odds and I want to make clothes that look like they're bought and ready to wear, not that I made them. Mm-hmm. And so at the time, I had been introduced to these estate sales because my background's real estate. I still work in the real estate world where I work for major corporations though now. And I'd gone to these estate sales, and one of my students at the time said, "Hey, Sandra, I'm at this estate sale. You need to come. They have quilts." Oh. Now, on a Saturday morning, I don't know about you, but I am not dressed to go to no estate sale. On a Saturday morning, I'm looking pretty hobo-ish. And I was like, really? And I was like, but this student is an amazing artist herself. And so I knew if she told me I should go, I needed to go. So I go, I put on my pants, put your clothes on, put the baseball hat on, that weekend look that we all have. And I drove over to this house, and it was the last couple hours of this sale. And this lady must have been somebody in the quilting world, because they said she had hundreds of quilts.
Oh,
hundreds.
wow.
And they had already told all the guilds, and they had already gone and bought and got all the quilts they wanted. So I literally bought the last of the last. Like okay. These were the quilts nobody wanted. And so I looked at them, and they were like amazing. The handwork and the precise. And I thought, now they were machine stitched, but hand quilted.
Right.
I thought, you know what? I could buy these 3 quilts, and I can put them in a pile, and I can admire them in my house. Or I could make clothing from them, educate the population of this is the craftsmanship of quilting. This is what quilting looks like, and bring a whole generation, a whole world of people into the artistry.
Right. Almost using them as an advertisement of look what this can be.
Yes. And I thought this woman spent hours, tireless hours, making these. The least I can do is to let the world see their work.
Yeah.
And that's my decision. That was my decision, to let the world, to advertise these amazing people's work. And so with that, I went and I thought about, how I can maximize, because again, my resources, and they were full-size quilts. And I'm like, how can I get the most garments? So for one of the quilts, I got a blazer. I was able to create a blazer, a bomber jacket, and a top. Out of the pants quilt, I was only able, that was a smaller one, to make just the pants. And what's interesting, I love it that you pointed out the yellow in the pants.
Yeah.
That's actually the lattice. That was the lattice work. And you really didn't see the lattice around the blocks, because the blocks are about 14-inch blocks. They're huge blocks. That actually took me a whole year to figure out how to make those pants. I literally had to lay the quilt out, and I lived in a condo, 2-story condo, and I would look over the banister to look at those, because how do I not look like a table? How do I lay these pants out? I found a pattern that had no side seam, so that the blocks could be continuous.
I see.
So I use that lattice work. And that's what I really try to help my students in my workshop when we're working with quilt tops that they've made or ones they've purchased, is how can we position our pattern pieces to bring interest to your quilt or your fabric.
Your garment. Yeah, exactly. How can you figure that out? And that one was truly a puzzle. Okay. And so your feeling is that, pretty strongly, it sounds like, is that quilt clothes are fabulous and are a way to sort of bring new people, pique new people's interest and bring them into the world of quilting.
Right. I mean, who would have thought? I have a 26-year-old and a 28-year-old who were like, no, we want these jackets. My 28-year-old goes to Hollywood in the music industry and wears his jacket that I made. And people are asking, hey, where'd you get that jacket from?
Yeah, because they're a bomber jacket, but they have this quilt block element.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're super cool. I think that's great. I think it's a great perspective to share, and a great story. So I'm really glad we had a chance to talk about that. And I know you recently moved to San Diego, correct? To be near your first grandchild?
Yes, and so it's a pivot. Nobody knows this. You'll be the first to know. So it was a pivot. She was going to be here for a year. Her husband's a dentist. My son-in-law is a dentist in the Navy, and now they're in Japan.
Oh.
So I just went under contract. I just bought a condo in Nashville.
Oh, wow. You're moving far away.
I know.
Why Nashville? Was there some draw?
So I have another daughter that lives in Nashville. I feel like the community in that part of the country, I'll be able to be even more creative. Financially, it's a better fit for me. And I've never lived in the South. And as an African American, I'm really looking forward to living in the South and experience all the South has to offer.
Yeah, I think that's great. I've spent a little bit of time in Nashville. I lived in Mississippi for 2 years. And so I spent some time there and had a wonderful time. It is a obviously super creative city. So I think that's great. I'm very excited for you. I can't wait to see kind of the influence of Nashville on the work that comes next.
Yeah. So this is, like I said, I really don't have a community there. I mean, I'm sure some of my followers are from there, so it's not like I don't have a community, but yeah, I'm
brand new. Yeah.
Really excited. A little hesitant because I'm like, this California girl and my progressive ways and how I live life. I'm like, I don't know if Nashville's ready for me.
I think Nashville, maybe, coming outside of Nashville, maybe not so much, but we'll see. I think Nashville itself will be pretty welcoming and progressive, but you'll have to let us know. And if listeners have tips for Sandra as to, good fabric stores to visit or other creative things, let us know on Instagram because we would, I'm sure you would love to start exploring.
Yes, and thrift stores are my
thrift stores. Yeah, best thrifting in Nashville. That's the recommendations we need.
Yes. So
that's awesome. So Sandra, I want to make sure we get to your list of recommendations, and you have a couple of really good ones. So your first one is creating wall art using repurposed denim and phrases that are relevant to today's time. So how are you creating the phrases?
Okay, so literally I'm listening to the news. Like literally it's about listening to the news. So for instance, I have a wall art quilt that says Black Power. That came back from when I saw the marches and everybody marching and everything. And I'm like, that was my era, the Black Power sign and all that. And I was like, you know what? I want to do a retro. And I have a piece that I put together and it has Black Power. I have a piece that says Black Love. There's a TV show that talks about Black love and it's couples and just about their love story. And I was like, you know what? You're always talking about, we have all these shows about doom and gloom, but I want to highlight, and I try to look at the glass half full. And I was like, what does Black love look like? And this happens to be a quilt that it's from the fabrics from two different countries. One's from Canada, Northcott is the main fabric. And then the side, 3 or 4 of the blocks are from Africa, the fabrics from Africa. And I love that. And I was like, that's what kind of, to me, Black love represents. It's from people from all over that happen to be in this country considered Black, because even if you're Cuban, you're Black. And what does that love look like? And how does that work? I saw a phrase that said, Rosa sat so Ruby could walk, so that Carmela could run, so that Khadijah could rule. Nice. And so that's one that will be coming out. I'm going to photograph it actually next month. I'll be down in Tampa. I have there's an exhibition that's coming out at one of the museums in Tampa. It's Black Pioneers. And there is Dr. Carolyn Munslumi.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm one of the artists that.
Oh, wow.
It's going to travel. It's now extended, I think, 3 years. The pieces will be traveling nationally and internationally. And so the opening, and I'll be down in Tampa around the 12th of September at the opening of the show.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's a huge honor. Very cool. So I'll take a look out for it and see if we can, include that in our newsletter and things like that. That sounds great. And then you also wanted to recommend The Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. And you said it's a must read along with The Water Dancer by Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Yes. So I'm sorry. I am health self-help guru. I love I'm always like, pour it into me. And it's so funny because I was in Canada at the Quilt conference there where I taught in June. And one of my students just, we were talking about, anything, whatever. And she goes, did you know about this Brene Brown and her new book? And I was like, oh, I have all the other books. And she goes, and she kind of looked at me like, you do? And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm a self-help person. And so I immediately looked at the book, got the book, and was like, oh, my gosh, this woman, she studies basically humans and how we navigate. Her big thing is, and her PhD is in leadership. And she's the one, when I started doing workshops and lecturing, she talks about leading through being transparent, and how you, as a leader, the more you're transparent, the more people are going to lean into. So when I stand up there and I tell you about the flaws or the mistakes that happened while I was making a piece and how I overcame those, you're going to lean in. Versus if I stand up there and say, like, look at this piece, it's, perfectly matched, and look at the points are all perfect, you're going to be like, oh yeah, she's perfect, I can never be her. And so she's kind of how I model my philosophy on being transparent and really having people lean into me. And I love the book. Very good. The second book,
The Water Dancer.
The Water Dancer is just, it's like historic, but it's a fiction. And so it just talks about Blacks in times where life was really hard. And it just takes you through the life of these characters, and it's so rich in its she's really good at painting the picture and really letting you see how the characters feel and how they live and exist. And it just made me really be thankful for the times that I live in and the people that have gone before me, the path that they have really opened up for me, because I have not had a hard life at all.
That's a great recommendation. Thank you for that one. And then the third one you had is the Vimeo app to help create reels. And it's interesting, Vimeo has really expanded some of their offerings recently. For example, we use Vimeo to host the videos for our webinars. And now you can really easily make a GIF right there in Vimeo that you can then export and use, in your email newsletter to say, hey, the recording's up, and it's kind of active because it's like a GIF and people are moving. And that's been really helpful. I've been really impressed with some of the additions Vimeo has made to make their offerings a little more robust. So how do you use the app to help make reels?
Again, there's only 12 hours in a day. And sometimes I'm just like, oh, I need to find a reel. I need to do a post. And so fortunately, when you have 4 kids, something's got to come from it. And my oldest daughter, she actually majored in film and television in college.
Oh, that's helpful.
So it's very helpful.
Yeah.
She doesn't really do my work, but she helps me. She'll show me like, here, Mom, here's a quick way. And she's always talking about storyboard. Did you do a storyboard? And I'm just like, oh, Kristen. But she keeps me on track. And so that's what I'm really not great at slowing down and taking the pictures I need to take in order to do the video. But I like that it's easy to use. So it's operator easy. You don't have to know a lot of stuff or, understand a lot of things. And then what I do is I follow other people. I'll look at other people's reels and I'll imitate, like, oh, wait, they did this scene first and then they did that scene second. And I think that's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah.
Is you don't have to recreate and try to figure out how to do it.
Definitely not. Yeah. Just riff on other people's good ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if, they started with fabric and then they went to this and they went to that, do the same thing. Just make it your own.
Right.
And so that would be my suggestion. Find an app that works for you, that you understand, because all apps are not created the same. So whatever way your brain thinks, work with that one. Remember that it's an hors d'oeuvre. It's not a main meal. So you just want to put a little taster in there. You don't try to put the whole, here's how I started and here's...
Oh, I love that way of thinking about it as an hors d'oeuvre. That's a great way to think about reels. Very good.
Yeah. So again, I know we're supposed to post regularly. If people know, I have been really bad at posting lately. I have been in this funk. I have a ton of photos. I have a photographer that I'm so blessed that she'll shoot my stuff for me, all my projects, and then I have to put them together. So I've kind of been in a funk, but I'm going to get out of that funk because I'm ready again to get back into social media and start posting regularly. Again, it's not easy, and I hope the audience realizes that. I mean, I'm sure you have to come up with the idea. And
oh, it's a ton of work. It's a whole nother job, which is why, for me, we hire somebody else to do it because we have Meg on our team who's awesome. Meg does the Instagram, and the reason for that is manyfold, but one of them is because, it just takes too much time, and it's very hard to do well, quickly. You just can't.
Yeah. Nope. And just for me, I'm not a big, like when people say, well, what was the thought behind that? I don't know. I'm like, I just woke up and I did it. I do so many things. So much is spontaneous and just comes into my head, or some research that I did 5 years ago. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I researched that. And then I know about this and this is happening right now. And I put them all together. But when you do a post, it has to tell a story and people have to be able to follow it. If anybody knows of anybody that's good at posting, I'm looking for somebody also.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. I hear you. Like writing the caption, even the whole story, the whole thing, it's time intensive. And yet we feel like in this day and age, we have to do it. So, I recommend hiring it out if and when you can. It's a relief for me, for sure.
Yes.
Well, Sandra, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Well, thank you. You are amazing. I've always, of course, we touched base years ago when I did the one-on-one with you and you did some coaching and you were like, well, Sandra, why don't you do this? Well, you know that person. And I was like, oh, yeah. So I always think back to our first, actually talking to each other. And you are definitely an inspiration for me. Love everything you guys do. And I'm so glad that you're in the space that you're in to help people and to guide others, creative people. And I just want to thank you for doing what you do.
Oh, thank you, Sandra. That's awesome. And you've been listening to the Craft Industry Alliance podcast. I'm Abby Glassenberg. Today's episode was brought to you by Craftsy. Whether you're new to making or looking to advance skills in a favorite hobby, Craftsy is the place to learn. With over 1,500 classes, there's something for everyone, from knitting and sewing to baking and cooking, gardening, embroidery, quilting, and more. Visit CraftsyOffers.com today and get a full year of Craftsy premium membership for just $3. That's 97% off the regular price. Start turning ideas into projects you can be proud of. Thank you so much, Craftsy. Craft Industry Alliance is a community for craft professionals. When you become a member of Craft Industry Alliance, you get in-depth coverage of craft industry news, the opportunity to connect with fellow professionals for advice and support, and access to an educational library filled with ideas, tools, and resources to help you as you build your business. Join us at craftindustrｙalliance.org. Thank you so much, and I will see you next time.